I've always been a gearhead. I'll admit that I used to enjoy even like how do I rack my bike on
Yeah.
my car more than the bike itself or what I was about to go do.
Yeah.
That looks cool when you throw a bike on your roof. You know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah, dude.
This is Couch to 50K. How to finish your first ultra marathon.
what's up, man?
What's up, yo?
How you doing? Cheers,
Good,
man.
How are you? Cheers.
Good. I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Doing well. Excited to talk about gear for a minute. This is our gear episode where
Awesome.
we dig into what it takes to get it done. How do you support yourself out there? So I dig the gear. Gear. It is all very expensive. That stuff adds up. But the cool thing about running is there's a lot less to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need some shoes to get it done. Typically, not everybody's out there in shoes.
Get
You
some
got
crazies.
sandals and barefoot
Yep.
and all kinds of stuff going on out there in the world. So let's start there. I think maybe talk about shoes for a second, and then we can get into some of the smaller accessories and things that help us get through a race like this.
Yeah. Shoes is going to be huge and super personal. You know, that's you're gonna see people in the toes. You know, the five finger.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna see people wearing Hoka, like the Bondi, the big huge cushion, and they're gonna be running next to each other on the same trail.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
So it really is going to become a matter of personal preference. But the cool thing is there's a lot of really great shoes, shoe brands and shoe ideas out there. You know, like just here in the shop, we carry a variety of we have Barefoot, we have the Vivo Barefoot, and we have the Hoka, and we have Topo, which is different, and Speedlam, which is different. All of them are have their own kind of little unique things that make them, you know, they're in their category. But yeah, I mean, shoes, it's super obvious, right? You're going to run.
Right.
You need something on your feet.
Yep.
So, you know, you got to find what it is that works for you.
Yep.
I don't really know that there's going to be a one
Oh yeah, I don't
size,
think so.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You gotta try some things out.
I think there's a difference between like well-made shoes and wearing, you know, like lower end shoes. And I'm not even going to say you know, this can be within a brand.
Sure.
Right. Because you can go to like Marshall's and find a pair of $30 New Balance.
Right.
Probably not the best shoes to go run an ultra in.
Right.
But like New Balance makes great shoes.
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
And you just got to probably pony up for like the ones that they put a little bit more, you know, I mean, you're going to be on your feet for a long time. So you want to have something under you, something you like, whether even like the Barefoot shoes are like well made, right? They're like well made for what they are. So I think that would be the thing that I would, if I'm going to give a recommendation, it's like get something that's well made and that's going to be durable and it's going to hold up. And then like, if you want like a Zero Drop or a Barefoot or a Hoka or what, you know, that's going to all be personal preference. But like for running, for being out there for a long time, you want quality on your feet.
Yep.
Unless you're crazy and you go barefoot, like,
Yeah.
you know, we've seen people do.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, you know, I do feel like it can be a little bit overwhelming because as the sport has gotten so popular, so has the brands have paid attention to that, and there's a ton of options out there now. But I think that's really solid advice. Of course, there's millions of reviews about everything, so you can get a pretty good sense of whether you're looking for that maximalist big shoe that's going to make it feel like you're running on a cloud, or something more minimalist, barefoot style, or, you know, somewhere in between, and then sort of hone in on a quality product, and then you can get even more specific, I think, right?
Yeah. And, you know, if you can, and you can have multiple pairs of shoes that you wear, like, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to run on the road now. So I'm going to wear like a heavily cushioned road shoe, you know, so I don't beat myself up on the asphalt. And now I'm going to go do a workout on the football field, you know, and I'm going to do strides, and I'm going to wear a barefoot shoe, and I'm going to try and build up that like strength in my ankles and Now I'm going to go for a run. I'm wearing the trail shoe out, so,
Right.
if you can, and obviously that's a luxury, like, to be able to have a stable of shoes.
Right.
It's like a dream for people. Like open the door and it's like, oh, any shoe for any purpose, but that would be great. Like if you can have a handful of shoes, that it's going to make each shoe last longer, and you're going to probably get better performance out of each shoe.
Yeah. I like that a lot. There's something to the new shoe day too, right? That's motivating.
That's pretty sweet.
New cool piece of gear will get you out there and keep the training going too, right? Even if you're getting in early.
Fresh kicks, dude.
Yeah. And we have a specific race prep episode coming later, but surely you wouldn't, unless you've done it many, many times, walk onto the starting line in a brand new pair of shoes that you've never felt on your feet before.
No, but you also don't want to walk into a pair that's got, 300 miles on them.
Sure.
So you want to break them in. That would be my break in the pair of shoes, so where it's comfortable on your foot. It's not going to be rubbing in any weird ways, like you already know. Ideally, you're wearing like a new version or a newish pair of the shoe that you trained in.
Right. Okay.
That's kind of.
So we've got a good 6 months in our program, right, where we can find something that we know is working well for us, especially towards the later months when you're going a little longer and it's kind of training tested for you personally. That's cool advice though. Grab that fresh pair that's exactly like what you found that you fell in love with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Break it in a little bit, and then you're nice
usually
and
it's like an old model too, so you can get a deal on it. You already been wearing it, it's not like a brand new thing you have to get, But then you get the problem, you go buy 2 pairs of shoes at a time.
Might as well.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna wear them eventually. Well, cool. I feel good about shoes. There's more to it, of course. So let's move on.
I'm going to go with the next thing, and I'll have a caveat on this, but the next thing is going to be a pack or some type of capacity to carry the gear that you need. Okay. The gear you need being like, your water bottles, and we'll go through a list of, random things that I like to carry in my pack, but, having something comfortable to transport the gear while you run, that's going to be like kind of the thing next to shoes. And the caveat that I'm going to put on that is that there's a lot of races where even though they're ultras, you don't need to carry stuff because the aid is so close. And I've seen people like many times carrying way more stuff than they need to. And at that point, it's just burdensome. Right. And like, it's hard to tell somebody who's into gear that they don't need to carry the gear.
Sure.
Dude, my first 50 miler, I carried a Garmin, like a handheld Garmin, because I wanted to track it so bad. Yeah. It probably weighed a pound. I had a big Camelback on with like I had everything that I needed in it. And then you get out there and, the aid stations were like 4 miles apart. And I really didn't need all of that stuff.
Right.
So the caveat is that like you want to look at what you're getting ready to go do and make sure that you're not overdoing it.
Sure.
But they make packs that, only carry a bottle of water. They're very thin, and it just lets you carry the water right here, instead of in your hand or, on your back.
Right.
So you don't, just because you say pack, it doesn't have to be like a huge, big piece of gear.
Right.
But yeah, pack is going to be like the thing that you want to, you want to get, and you want to get used to running with it too, because it is like, it bounces, and you got to figure out, where is the thing that I need? Like, I want to get my food. How do I reach it? And, like where, it's, it's a little bit of a learning curve,
right? Huge fit component to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To make sure that pack, however you're carrying your stuff, is secure. Seems like bounce would be a big part of that, right?
Yeah, I think
I've never really run with a pack. I'll be honest. I mean,
okay, we're saying pack too, and I'm gonna even go. It's gonna be a vest.
Okay.
the difference between like a day pack and an ultra running pack is that it puts it puts most of the stuff on your chest as opposed to your back.
Okay.
So a vest is probably a better way to say it. Now, a lot of times you will still have like the backpack part of it,
right?
Like a camelback and maybe some clothes or whatever on your back. But in terms of, that's what, like the access, having it right on your chest. But also if you think about when you're running and you're slightly leaning forward, just that little bit of like extra lean and momentum helps. And it also like it really hones in the jiggling and the wiggling and stuff if you have it tight against your chest. It's like the least movement that you'll find.
So I mean, forever, as mountain biker, that type of thing, I would often rock the reservoir with the straw. At least in videos and stuff that I've seen, I see a lot more of like the soft flask with the straws, and people are just stealing sips like that.
It's easier. Okay, it's easier. I mean, soft flasks are, I don't know if they're new, but pretty recent that like everything went to a soft flask. So when it's pushing on your chest, it doesn't hurt. Also, as you drink the water out of it, it like compresses. And so it's not sloshing around. If you just have like a hard water bottle, it sloshes. And like all those little like momentum things will add up.
Sure.
So for carrying a lot of water, still the reservoir is like, going to be your go-to. But you can get like a liter on your chest in 2 bottles, which is, that's a significant amount.
Right.
And so if you want to talk about another piece of gear, if I'm, increasing my capacity to carry water, I'm going with 1 bottle on my chest, a soft flask. Then I would go to another soft flask. Then the next thing I would go to would be a handheld.
Okay.
And then if I had to, I would go to a reservoir and maybe ditch the handheld or ditch one of the soft flat, but the handheld is the first 100-miler that I ran, I just wore shorts and shoes and I carried a handheld because the aid stations were like,
close enough.
It was close enough
that it worked.
And my shorts had pockets in them that I could put gels and I could put food in. But, I was just aid station to aid station and I really didn't need to carry a ton of fuel. And so handhelds is a great tool. You can now find a handheld that's a soft flask.
Oh, okay.
And so as you drink it, it compresses into nothing. And then when it's gone, it's nothing. You stick it in your pack and now you're not carrying anything again.
Yeah.
So that's a huge kind of like thing to play around with is like basically what it comes down to is your capacity to carry water and fuel. Okay. How do you want to do that? What's the most comfortable way to do that? A vest, that's like the industry standard now is like what kind of vest, how much capacity does it have? Handheld is another great way to do that.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, so we'll have a fueling episode as well, where we kind of get into more specifics of how much we should be taking in, calorie wise, water wise, all that type of thing. But I do, on the gear note, I think, you're refilling throughout the race. Yeah. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want that to be nice and easy to pop up to the aid station and whip it out, undo it, give it a refill.
That's one of the nice things about the vest, in like 2 soft flasks. That's, you run up to the aid station, they're right here, you take them right out, you undo it. As opposed to the reservoir in the back, you might have to take off your pack. You got to unbuckle something. You got to unslide the thing. Now they fill it up, and now it's like this giant thing of water, and you're trying to put it back together. All those little things add up. You're gonna find like some things that like you think that this is like a great. I had these really cheap soft flasks that I got from like Amazon, China, basically. And they're great. They leak a little bit, but they're okay. And then the first time I, used them in a race, the top is so small that I couldn't like to dump in the, the mix that I had that I was using was like a
powder mix to mix with the water.
Yeah. Cause you're like trying to get it into like the tiny hole.
Right.
So you will notice that like better brands will make like they know that, and so they have like a full wide mouth at the top, and
right.
So little things like that you would think about. But yeah, the vest, the pack, that's probably your thing after shoes, and then it's like, what are you putting in your pack? Obviously, for you going to run Holcomb Valley, you're going to have a specific set of things that you're going to want to put in there. Just in case, like for you, it might be like sun protection.
Sure.
Right. You're going to want to carry something to help you, whether that's a hat or sunglasses or sunscreen or whatever. For somebody else, it might be like a rain gear.
Right.
You're going to want to be able to put a poncho in there or a raincoat. I'm always carrying lube. 100%. That's like definitely in there. I take like a Ziploc baggie, and I just squirt a bunch of like I use A&D ointment. Squirt a bunch of it in the Ziploc baggie, and I put it in my pack. I'll also put that in drop bags, in case I have to just whatever wherever you need.
Right.
Some other things I'm always carrying in my pack: ginger.
For the tummy.
Ginger for the tummy.
Okay.
So like they make these little like ginger candies. Always have those in my pack. And now this is like just for a race setting. Obviously, you're going to want that, but also in training, like having this stuff in your pack all the time. The more we run, the more we're out there, the more situations you're going to find yourself in. Wipes. You never know. You never know when the nature's going to call.
Sure.
And so, like I have like a little kit that I put in my pack. It's like ginger, wipes, lube, a really lightweight headlamp.
Okay.
Like Petzl makes this one that's like, it's just got like paracord, and it's just a tiny headlamp. Weighs almost nothing, but you go out for a run and something happens and you're walking, and now you're, instead of 3 hours, you're out there for 6, and you might need a headlamp.
That's a good, I think a lot of this goes to going from the shorter distances to the longer distances. It kind of shocked me that my normal, 4 or 5 mile setup almost starts to break down at like 8 miles.
Yeah.
I add in those couple extra miles, and all of a sudden I'm coming home with a little chafing in a weird spot or a blister that I wasn't expecting, and so obviously we're not talking about 8, we're talking about ultramarathon distance, right? This is all going to become really important and could be the difference in a DNF and getting to the finish line.
Yeah, right? Man. Or calling your wife for a ride midway through your your training run. Like I've been there where it's like, man, if I would have had an extra pair of socks with me, I would be great. But I didn't have wipes either. I had to use one of my socks, and then now I'm running barefoot, and it's just So
the old sock wipe, huh? Okay.
Being prepared is it obviously you don't want to be over prepared because you got to carry all this stuff.
Right.
But having a kit like buffs, like carrying a buff with you, especially for us in the mountains, if you go out for an evening run, the temperature swings up here can be like pretty drastic.
Sure. For people who might not know, a buff is,
it's kind of like a neck gaiter,
Okay.
It's just like a really thin piece of cloth that you can wear as a face covering or a hat, or you can wear it in a variety of ways. But if you have like my pack is basically like, it stays the same. It's like a really lightweight windbreaker, a buff, a little medical kit that's got lube and like a Band-Aid and like a couple of things, some ginger. And the reality is I almost never touch that stuff. I almost never do. But it is the things that I am going to use in that situation. And so you do, if that comes up, you practice with it. And then like the race is going to be a situation where you're out there more than you are in training. And you want to have that like confidence that you have that stuff. You want to have the practice of like, oh yeah, like, oh, I know, oh, my stomach hurts. I have 2 Tums. Like I always carry 2 Tums. You like the idea you're going to need a whole bottle of Tums is like, meh.
Right.
But 2 Tums and a piece of ginger,
Mm-hmm.
like that'll get you back to your car,
Right, right.
and then to the toilet.
Yep. Yep.
So, I think those are like the gear, if you want to call them gear,
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that are like, that's why you have a vest,
Right.
That's why
Right.
you're wearing a vest out there. You're carrying all these little things that are going to let you keep going.
I like it. Yeah. Keep the journey moving. Keep
Yeah,
it moving
dude.
forward.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a few other things. I do see people do some ultras with poles, like
Yeah.
almost traditional hiking poles. Maybe there's race versions. I've seen like the collapsible ones and that kind of thing.
Carbon fiber, like the carbon fiber poles are, going to be the lightweight. They are probably overused.
Okay.
But it's hard because they save your legs.
At the right times, right?
Yeah. So they save your legs. But there's a trade-off because now you're carrying 2 poles.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that you do, you now have to manage these 2 poles. You want to fill up your bottle. You want to get something out of your pack. You want to do so. Like the amount of time that you can waste and the amount of energy you can waste with poles is like a negative of it. Like the benefit of it is that it really can preserve your legs. Especially on the downhill, it can take away some of the force every time, every step. That really can add up. But you want to practice with them just like the other stuff. If you're gonna use poles, and I guess I would say they're overused because you see them in like flat running races, where it's like,
Yeah, I guess
sure.
I see that because there is significant downside to carrying that with you all day long.
Yeah.
Right. But and certainly race specific too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you just said, there's most races maybe it's not needed, or maybe most isn't the right word. I don't have a great sense of all the ultras that are out there, but I guess what I'm saying is it takes a pretty significant terrain for it to be like this is a huge benefit versus the downside that comes along with it. Yeah,
there's races where it's obvious that you should be using poles because they're steep and they're technical. And so the efficiency you gain from carrying the poles outweighs like the nuisance of carrying the poles. Now, if it's a fire road that you're running on and you're running, but you have poles with you, at that point, they're not, they're really not. Now, I will say as a caveat, if you're, hurting, no matter what the terrain is, the poles are going to be a savior.
Right.
So, it's again, personal preference. What are you looking to get out of the thing? What's your practice with? I would not recommend just grabbing poles for a race. They're you're going to burn more energy trying to figure out how to use them. But if you're willing to practice with them, they can make you feel like you're going faster in a lot of situations. Going uphill, they can really add a lot. You can but work on them. You get tennis elbow, if you're at first, when you first start doing them, at least I did, I got a lot of tennis elbow. I carried poles for 4 days at Tour de Gent. And I couldn't feel my pinkies for like 3 weeks. I couldn't zip up my pants. Like after a 4-day run, the thing that hurt the most was my hands.
Really?
Because I was just gripping poles the entire time.
Yeah.
And now I think it's Lecky makes like a glove that it attaches to the top of the pole.
Okay.
So you're not like you don't have to grip as much. And I've kind of figured out, some ways to hold them a little bit and to not grip them so tight. But that was definitely like a learning experience.
Yeah.
What is wrong with my hands?
Right.
And then it's like, dude, like,
yeah, it's the long distance stuff, man. It's that compounding thing over time, right? I experienced that on a bike with just a regular old water bottle that has you pop the top up and down, but it was kind of hard to do. And I was doing it with my mouth, and I felt like my teeth were going to fall out. Like it was the same thing as your hands, but the next morning, like I couldn't move my mouth. Yeah. Because I spent the whole day doing, that's not a great gesture for the camera, but you know what I'm saying. It was painful, but back to the specific poles, I've only used them a few times hiking, a little bit of backpacking, but it was hard. Yeah. Even just getting the cadence of like, how is this actually an efficient motion for my body? It took some more practice than I thought it would. It doesn't seem like a difficult thing, but getting it in sync with your legs and not making it work. Much pressure. Yeah.
And I think that's like probably the thing to take away from the gear talk is like, you want to practice with this stuff.
Right.
And it can feel absurd at times because almost none of your training runs are, 6 hours or 7 hours like your 50K is going to be.
Right.
But you want to be practicing and wearing like all this stuff so that it's not new when it comes. There's like that old adage of like, don't ever try anything new in a race. And I don't take that as like, don't use a new piece of gear. Like, go buy new trekking poles that are in great shape and they're lightweight before the race, but you will have practiced with trekking poles for a long time before you do that. It's like, don't do a new movement. Like, don't create a new skill set right before the race. Like, you want to know what you're doing with the gear. Like putting a new headlamp on isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like knowing how to run with the headlamp on, where you keep the headlamp in your pack, all of those things you want to have dialed in.
Nice. Yeah, that feels good. We ran down the list pretty good there. I think we hit our kind of first aid essentials that you should really just kind of be carrying anytime you're going out a little bit longer training or racing. Shoes. That feels like a pretty good list. You kind of summed it up with the takeaway, but I think that's probably the biggie here is find the thing that works for you and then practice. Yep. Just get super used to it to where that gear is just a part of what you do.
Totally. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
They make fun of like, the ultra runner on the like 3 mile trail with all his stuff that like the little kids hiking next to him. And it's like, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it is like, you want to practice what you're going to use. And even if it's not needed on the run that you're on, I over carry often,
sure,
in training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there are going to be surprises within the race. I've done enough races to know that regardless of the race, like something's going to happen that you're not planning for. Yeah. Right. And it's almost like, how do we mitigate that as much as possible? And it comes through practice, time, using these things over and over and over so that when we're out there and we need it, you're ready to do it. You're ready to throw it into action. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cool. All right. Gear.
Sweet, dude.
Check.
Gear
check. Done.
Gear check. Cheers.
Couch to 50K is an elevated SoCal project. All rights reserved.